Wood has been a medium for art for thousands of years. In fact, some of the earliest art forms were in bone and in wood. So it's obviously a huge part of history and an important element of artwork. And today, for me, wood is the primary primary medium that I use to make art from. And so today we're going to talk about my favorite types of wood and some of those which are most commonly used and which are less commonly used, but I think people need to consider when they're getting woods. And some of those are actually very cheap and easy to access. So stay tuned for that. Quickly, I wanted to say that the woods mentioned in this video are also, most of them at least, are mentioned in this book. And this book is Carving Faces in Wood. So it's available to order. It's my first ever book, and I've been so appreciative of the support that you guys have given it already. But it's available July 16th. Should be available before then on the Fox Chapel website around July. But that said, do appreciate the support. Let's get to the video. So the first is one that might not be as commonly thought of as a wood for carving, and that is birch. Birch is soft enough, it's hard enough, however, to hold detail. It's kind of in that nice middle point. Let's call it a medium density wood. It has fantastic grain presence, meaning it's consistent between hard winter growth rings and soft summer growth rings. It holds detail well, it's homogeneous. It's an excellent wood. You can get paper birch, you can get silver birch. They all have this very interesting exterior kind of bark, which lends to add a very interesting framing if you're going for a more rustic look. But either way, birch is excellent to carve. Kuxas and the Swedish, Scandinavian styles of carving, they've been taking advantage of birch for very, very many years, although in the United States you don't see it quite often as used. It's one of my favorites and absolutely one to start with if you've not used it before. Another in the larger family of woods is cedar, and cedar is actually really nice to carve. It can be very dense, it can be very soft depending on the subspecies. I tend to like to use red cedar most often, and actually not technically in the cedar family is juniper. So western red cedar is actually in the juniper family, and it is an incredible wood to carve. It's a little bit hard, but it has this amazing color, and to me, it's the best smelling wood. If that matters to you, it matters to me. It has an amazing aroma, like a sweet cedar smell to it. Juniper is one of the best. Very purple, red tone with cream colors in it. It's a nice one. So moving past those woods into some less commonly carved woods even than those, you might not hear a ton about aspen, but aspen is the larger group of woods which falls into the willow category. You see willow in the aspen family. Willow is amazing to carve. It's very soft, it holds detail well. The only real downside being that it has a high radial shrinkage rate, so you're going to see as soon as moisture leaves the wood, it's going to create a crack in the wood, a change in a disparity and changes in humidity, and that basically means big cracks. So you want to stabilize that wood if you're carving it green. So willow, anything in the trembling aspen, anything in the aspen family is generally very, very nice to carve. Okay, so moving past aspen into the found wood category. Found woods being woods that are left in their raw state, and typically woods that you might be able to find as a root or a piece of bark laying on the ground. The first and one that's probably most often associated with me is cottonwood. Cottonwood has this crispy textural sound that is unlike any wood to carve. It's a sensation that's like ASMR. If you haven't heard of ASMR, it's some letters that have some significance. I don't know. ASMR means autonomic, I don't know. Basically, it makes you feel relaxed when you listen to it. In fact, that's one of the reasons I stuck to carving, is seeing Ron Adamson carve cottonwood bark in his YouTube videos. So cottonwood bark, soft, it holds detail, low grain presence, it's bark, so it doesn't have the same grain structure. Instead of tubular-like structure, it has a sheet, like almost paper sheets glued on top of one another so that you're carving into the sheets. It's very unique. It holds detail well. It can be, and in some cases, if it's not stable, fairly rotted or old, very flaky. And in that case, it could be a struggle bus. You might need to keep the super glue handy, but cottonwood bark is an amazing medium. Considering its softness, its ability to hold detail is unparalleled. So if you haven't carved cottonwood bark, give it a shot. in that family as well, we mentioned juniper earlier. Juniper is neat in its found form because it has this sort of twisted and gnarled look to it that makes it great as a frame for any type of found wood carving. If you're doing wood spirits, or you could do Santas or all types of figures in juniper, because it is so interesting to look at. The shapes, the forms, the twists are just amazing. And you can see here that I'm using it as a medium for carving a wood spirit. It's a fantastic medium. In fact, power carving is a nice outlet or is a nice way of carving this wood, because it is a little bit on the hard side. You can absolutely hand carve it. I've done it myself many times with a mallet and some chisels. Break out those mallets for the juniper. It is a little harder. So going into the more common woods for carving, you'll see basswood. Right? Basswood is in the family of linden, so you'll also see limewood in that category on the European side. For those of my folks over in Europe, holler at you. It's a really nice, dense wood, limewood is, and basswood is the slightly softer American cousin. And you know, what can I say about basswood? It's the most commonly carved wood here, as I said before, and it's even grain. It has what I've heard some people describe as an interlocking grain structure, which means that you can carve in multiple directions and it tends to stay together. It's less flaky than most woods. It's got a beautiful cream color to it that can be boring, but spalting, the inclusion of fungus, as you can see in this carving, Christ with Crown of Thorns, can really make it interesting. And the way that happens is when you leave the tree on the ground, it will foster plant or organic growth, like fungus and mold, as I said before, discolor the wood and make for a really interesting grain color. So when I'm carving basswood, you'll see a lot of times I'm using basswood that's spalted because I like the coloration. Yeah, so besides basswood, butternut is a very, very commonly carved wood. I think it's endangered by the butternut canker. I think it's a bug, but it's attacking the wood and it's becoming less common and in some areas protected. But it is an amazing wood, very similar to basswood in terms of hardness, maybe about as soft. Some folks might say a little harder, but depending on the region it's acquired from. It is also called white walnut. I'm not sure, I believe it's in the walnut family. You guys can fact check me on that, but it is much softer than black walnut or English walnut and is incredibly beautiful in terms of its grain pattern. I mean, you can see here on this carving, the grain shows through in such a way to make it a lot more interesting than basswood or birch or some of the other more plain cream colored woods. Yeah, so definitely recommend it. And I would suggest if you haven't carved it, get your hands on some butternut. Many carvers exclusively carve in large form pieces of butternut. So yeah, check that out. Possibly the most slept on, as the kids say, woods in terms of just being underappreciated for its ability to hold fantastic detail and be soft and look pretty decent all the while, is pine. And the reason why that is because pine is actually misunderstood, and there are over 100 subspecies of pine. And therefore, one pine is not the same as another. And so white pine as a larger category is not just one thing. It's white pine, and that could be a whole host of woods. And so the moral of this story, the moral of this introduction to pine is you have to try pine for yourself and try different subspecies. Now, what many people think is pine is actually blue spruce, so be wary of the fact that if someone gives you some blue spruce and says, here's some pine, if it's sappy, if it's very stringy, it's hard, and it's difficult to carve, it's not pine, it's spruce. Well, I guess it might be in the pine family, that I'm not sure of. I'm not a tree specialist here, I just have some basic knowledge of woods for carving. Now that said, white pine, I've used some white pines that are incredible to carve. Yellow pine on the whole, not so good. In the spruce family, not so good. Those are typically used for construction, like lodgepole pine, if I'm not mistaken. Those are more stringy, they're harder, they're better for construction purposes again, whereas the softer white pines, those are really, really nice to carve. And so I've had amazing luck with large-scale carving of white pine. So check that out. Definitely don't neglect the use of it, because it's an amazing wood. Yeah, and that probably would be the most rare or the most unsuspected wood, and it's why I saved it for the last one, because again, pine is just beautiful, beautiful to carve. It holds detail well. You'd be really surprised if you found a piece of pine that was nice, dense, an older tree. It's just amazing to carve, so don't sleep on it. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you'd like to know more about woods, again, I've got a book out. There's tons of great information online if you do some digging on the forums. But the best way to learn is just to pick up a piece of wood and try carving it. Get your tools nice and sharp. And if you want to know if a good wood is a good wood, then just get that blade into that fiber of the wood and carve it and tell yourself, oh, this is bad, or oh, this is good. Literally, there's no better way. And so just get yourself after it, get carving, and find out what woods are good, and make your own version of this video. I'd love to see it. So that being said, thanks for watching, guys. Check out my online school, Fundamentals of Wood Carving, to learn more about carving realistic faces in wood. There's intermediate, there's beginner, there's advanced, there's a whole range of projects, 80+ project videos, 3 projects added each month in the beginner, intermediate, and advanced categories. So check that out in the link below. If you'd like to learn about carving realistic portraiture, that school is one of the largest resources, if not the largest online resource for portrait carving. So would love for you to check that out. And check out my book. Thanks, guys. Bye.